My name is Lindsay Zanker, and I am currently, my title is Laboratory Analyst here at Funky Buddha. I started this job about 4 months ago after pivoting. Prior to this, I was doing research and development in the cannabis industry. So I was doing a lot of product development, food formulations, emulsions, stuff like that, and decided to make the pivot to beer because the culture at my previous company was just not the right culture for me. So here at Funky Buddha, I do everything science related, everything lab related. I am in charge of the lab. I plan out the day-to-day testing as well as actually going in there and conducting the testing. I'm currently a one-person team. So all of our brewers and cellarmen come in and they will also do some testing in the lab. But as of right now, the only actual approved quality, lab person is me. So my manager, Ryan, he's the founder of Funky Buddha, so he could definitely speak more to that. But from what I understand, he's kind of always loved that way of life that comes with the Buddha and just how, meditation and Buddhism and all of those things kind of play together to make like a very, relaxing environment, a very spiritual environment. So back in 2010 is when they started serving beer, but back in 2007, they opened the original lounge, which was Funky Buddha Lounge. And that was actually a lounge and hookah bar. So people could go there, they could have some really cool, interesting new flavors of beers, and then also enjoy, smoking hookah with their friends. We've since moved to this much larger facility in Oakland Park. The lounge was in Boca Raton. So we're now in a massive, warehouse with our processing facility, our lab, our tap room, retail, marketing offices, HR offices. So we're definitely a lot bigger today than the original Funky Buddha Lounge was. Yeah, so yeast is actually an interesting portion of kind of that flavor development. So that's kind of where the baseline of the flavor development starts. So with certain yeast, you get certain flavors. Sometimes they're called off flavors, but we're actually looking for those off flavors. So a lot of times we'll target specific esters to give us specific like aromatic compounds with those, individual yeast strains. So that's kind of where we'll start for certain beers, like for example, our Floridian, which is our number one like core beer, our number one best-selling beer. That's something that we use a very specific yeast that we are trying to get these clove and banana esters from that yeast. So in that case, that is primarily the yeast doing the work there that is giving us that very specific flavor that we're looking for. A lot of the very unique flavors that we do, like coffee, when we do our maple bacon coffee porter, we have oyster saison, so we'll do a lot of very funky, unique brews, and with that, it's actually all added almost like adjuncts. So we're adding it after the beer has fermented, prior to filtering and putting it in the bright tank. So we like to do a lot of dried spices. We do a lot of just playing around with flavors. We'll do some small batches. Maybe we'll do a barrel before we scale up to like 7 barrels, which is our pilot size. But there's definitely no shortage of innovation going on here. We're constantly looking for new ways to do things, for interesting flavors to introduce, and things like that. Because a lot of our beers, especially like our core beers, are hinging on the yeast that we're using and all the flavors that that's imparting, the yeast viability is a really important measurement for us. So we have a yeast for our Floridian, and let's say it is 50% viable. We're certainly not going to expect that we would get the same amount of aromatic esters and compounds that we would be expecting from a fully, 95% viable yeast. So yeast monitoring is very important for us, especially when we're talking about those core beers, because again, there are no other flavors in there that will cover it up or that can add back those flavors. It's truly just we are relying on that yeast and trying to make sure that we are pitching it at a correct viability so that we are getting adequate ester development. mean, I would say that, there's definitely a difference. Unfortunately, as of now, we don't do any of the canning or production of our seltzers. It's all done by our, like, kind of our counterpart that's in Daleville, Virginia. It's definitely different. I wouldn't say that a seltzer is less meaty. I would say that there is less room for error when it comes to flavor, just because a lot of times with those yeast strains that you're using to ferment for, use in a seltzer, you're not looking for specific flavor compounds that are going to be developed by those yeast. So it's a lot easier in terms of flavoring because all you have to do is add a flavor. So the consistency, I would say, is easier from that standpoint. I would say that you have a higher chance of certain microbial growth in seltzers than you do in beer, especially depending on ABV. Of course, when you talk about non-alcoholic, then that's a whole different ball game there with a bunch of other different concerns. But yeah, So I have the benefit of actually having come in, I guess, benefit and I guess also consequence of starting the job at the time that I did. I did not have any experience using any other method for yeast viability and concentration. So I came in and we were already using the Oculii system. So for me, it was very easy to learn and very easy to implement. So I drafted up basically one sheet, just not front and back, only one-sided, that has all of the instructions, which, I know you guys had sent something similar with it. I tweaked it a little bit. We have some yeast that's more clumpy than the other yeast, so we have different procedures for preparation of those. But I was able to put everything into one sheet, laminate it, and keep it with our Oculii system. So when the cellar guys come in to run viability and concentration, they have no excuse. If they mess up, it's all written right there in front of them, step by step. So it's very, very easy to follow. And I think that, again, I don't have the experience of using what we were using prior, but I can only speak to the Oculii system, but it is extremely easy to use, extremely easy to interpret. And then the fact that you can also calculate pitch rate off of that is a huge benefit. There's two that I would have a tie between, and one is our Hazy Mango IPA. That one's really, really good. It's a nice balance of hoppiness with also, the strong IPA characteristics, but with that little hint sweetness of mango. It kind of brightens up the whole beer, which I really like. And then the other one I like, which is more of like a dessert beer, more on the side of dessert, is our rum barrel aged Bananas Fosters. That is phenomenal. You really get all the rum flavoring that's, from the actual rum barrel that we're aging it in. And then just combining that with the banana and then like the caramel malts. It's a very unique beer. It has a lot of brown notes to it, a lot of caramelization notes to it. And I'd say overall, definitely one of my favorites.